All right, guys, let's start. I think there will be only three of us. Cool. Let's continue with this thing today. So I'll just quickly get back to what we did yesterday. Let's rename this to D3. And let's go back. So yesterday we had seen something about data types. All right, and we started with if-else. Cool. So today what we'll do is we'll do if-else and loops. All right. I'll go in more depth into how if-else works and how loops work. Okay. So, these are these two are the fundamental things that every programming language provides to you. All right. So we'll go with that, and then let's see what we take next. Cool. So let's put this thing first. So first we'll talk about if else. So yesterday we saw a basic example of if else. So when we talk about if else, each programming language provides multiple constructs, not just one. All right. For example, you can have just an if condition. All right. Yesterday what we saw was an example of if and else together. Cool. But today we'll see multiple other if else, and if else, and yeah, these are the different constructs. Cool. So let's start by writing a simple program. Let's say I want to write a program to input two numbers and print the largest out of them. All right. So if I have to write this program, I can write it using if else this way. Let's say n1 equals to int bracket input, enter a number. Say number 1, and then we can say n2 equals to int input enter number 2. Cool. And then we just say if n1 is greater than n2, we say print n1, else colon print n2. All right. So what we are doing is we are again using that same indentation logic that this statement, which is in line number 7, will only get executed if the condition which is mentioned after if this gives me a true result, then this will execute, otherwise it won't. It would go to else and it would execute line number 9. All right, so if I enter 10 and say 5, so code starts from here. When I say n1 equal to this thing, so this first prompt appears. It takes 10 as input, then goes into n1 as an integer since I'm doing the type conversion. Then you get n2, which I have typed just now once I hit enter. So then it will go to the next line, which is line number 6, n1 greater than n2, which is true. And hence it will execute this line of code and this will get skipped. Cool. So this is how your if else based things work. All right. And if I run this code with values which are equal, all right, so which one would get executed, the first one or the second one? In case I put both of them equal, even then the condition is false, so it will always execute the second one. Okay, so this is one way of writing this program to find the larger of two numbers. Cool. Got this thing? Let me know if you have any questions. Okay, we are just two people, so cool. Feel free to ask anything. Now I can think of writing this thing in another way. Let's say ANS or R equals to N1. So many times we write programs by making an assumption. So what I'm saying is R is going to hold my result, and I'm assuming that the largest number is present inside R. Okay, but then I go and check, is my assumption correct? Is R great not larger than N2? Then I say R equal to N2. Okay, and now I can just say at the end print R. So if can be used alone without the use of else, it's possible in programming languages, in Python also. Cool. So how this thing works is if I enter 10 and then I enter 5, first value of R would be what? 10. Then you check, is 10 less than 5, which is false. So your R doesn't get changed. This line doesn't execute and you just print 2. If instead I enter 5 and let's say 10, now what happens is you initially assume that my largest number is 5. Then you would go and check your assumption whether it's correct or not. When you check is 5 less than 10, it means your assumption was wrong. Your 5 is not the largest one. So in that case, you update your r's value to what? 10. So now r is 10. And then you print r. Cool. So this is how you can write a program in two different ways. All right. One we wrote using if else, one we have written using just if. So there are many ways of writing and using these kind of structures. Got this thing?
Yeah,
Is this clear? All right. Would you guys want to try to write a program using this approach, how to find the largest of three instead of two? Like input three numbers and print the largest of three using this approach.
okay.
Cool. Okay. Give it a shot. And once you're done, just paste it over here so that I can have a look.
Yeah, please send the document link.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll just send now. Yeah, you're done. Okay, I've actually written the solution and it looks like this. So just have a look over here. So I've just added one more line over here. Added input for number n3. I'll call it n3. And then I just added another if. So what I say is if my assumption is wrong with respect to n2, update my assumption. If my assumption is still wrong with respect to n3, update my assumption again. And so what happens is if I enter 1, 2, and 3, first r becomes 1. Then I check is 1 smaller than 2. That means my assumption is wrong. I'll update it. Then again check is my new assumption also wrong because n3 might be even larger than the current value. So then I update it again. And then finally I get the largest value. Alright. So this is one way of writing it. If I write given input like this 1, 2, 1, and 3, in this case what happens is first your r becomes 2, but your assumption is right from this perspective. All right, so you don't update the value to 1. But when you come over here, you see that, okay, 2 is less than 3, so you have to update. Also, or if you give an input like this, then you keep the value of r as 3, and then you never update it and finally print a 3. So this is one way of writing this logic. Do you get the idea now? Got it? Questions? Anything?
Like I was trying to use if and else like then.
Okay, that way. That I'll show you. So I can write the same program maybe in 4 to 5 ways. That's also a way. Correct. So there is another way. I'll just show you. Were you using and or operators or just if else?
If else, just if else.
Okay, so I think you would be writing something like this. Correct me if I'm wrong. Let's go over here and let's say if n1 is greater than n2, and you mean something like nested if else,
Yeah.
and n1 is greater than n2 and n1 is also greater than n3, then you say print n1 else print n3 else, and then like this, n2 is greater than n3 print n2 else print n3, something like this.
Yeah, but I didn't use this N3. After that, again, I got else. In the second, like after the else thing, I again started if statement again back.
Okay, over here you started n. Is it?
Above the else.
Okay, above here. All right, over here. Actually, you don't need to put an if over there. The reason is if n1 is greater than n2, we already know that n1 is larger than n2. Cool. Then we say if n1 is greater than n3. If this becomes false, it means it established that n3 is greater than n1. Fine. If n3 is greater than n1, but we reached here only after verifying that n1 is already greater than n2. So if n1 is greater than n2 and n3 is greater than n1, so it's a relation like n3 is the largest one. So it's something like at this point you are at a situation where you see n3 is greater than n1 and n1 is greater than n2. This is true because of this condition, and this is true because this became false. So that's why you don't need to put an if, you can just put an else and it works. Got it?
Got it.
Yeah, so that's the idea. This is another way of writing it, and this is called as nested if else. Nested means one if else inside another, and whenever you're doing this thing, you have to use additional indentation. So to tell Python that this code belongs to this if, you have to indent it with respect one level with respect to it, but this code belongs to this if. All right, so it has to be indented at 2 levels, one for the outer if and one for this inner if. Cool. So the indentation has to be taken care a lot. Cool. That's very important in Python. If you mess up indentation, it may give you a syntax error like in unmatched indent or something like that, or invalid indent, something like that it gives to you. There's another way of writing it. So let's see that. What we can often do is we can write conditions like this. If 1 is greater than 2 and 2 is greater than 3. All right. So we have two operators which are called as logical operators. One is OR and one is AND. All right. So what they do is they evaluate a condition. Let's make it 10 greater than 2, and like this. So what AND says is whatever conditions you're putting, if all the conditions are true, you're going to get a true. If any one of them is false, you'll get a false. Or says if any one of them is true, you'll get a true. Otherwise, you're going to get a false. All right, it's that simple with and all. There's nothing very complex or something very different about them. All right. So instead of writing this way, we can rewrite the same program this way. But let's do one thing. I'll show you a program which says write a program to input a number and print if it is positive, negative, or 0. All right. So over here you have only two options. One is like if this condition is true, something happens. If the condition is not true, then something else happens. There's no other logic. So programming languages provide a ladder or a if elif or if else if ladder. So it's called as elif in Python. So it's written something like this. If n is greater than 0, it means the number is positive. Right. Elif n is less than 0, print negative. All right, and else print 0. So what we are doing is we are saying that if the value of n, which I'm taking as input over here, let's say enter an integer. All right, and we just say if the value input by user is more than 0, then it means it's definitely positive. If it is lesser than 0, then it's negative. Otherwise, if it is neither less, neither more, it means it's equal to 0, and else we put 0. Okay, so what happens in this latter kind of scenario is, if you notice this all these conditions are checked irrespective of whether the previous one was true or not. So this will be checked whether this evaluated to true or not. This will be checked whether this evaluates to true or not. All right, there's no relation. But in if elif there is a relation. If the first one becomes true, it will execute this code and skip everything else. Otherwise, if the first one is false, then it will go and check the second one. If the second one becomes true, then it will execute this and skip the else part. If both of the conditions become false, then it will go and directly execute else part because there's no condition with else. So that's what happens with this if elif construct. All right, so if elif is used when you have mutually exclusive conditions or situations, like only one of them can happen at a point of time. Then you use your if elif. Okay, use when we have mutually exclusive situations or condition. All right, and if you have situations where you want to test for each and every situation separately irrespective of the previous one, then you use multiple if. So these are two different use cases where you can use if and elif. Got it? And we have used only one elif over here. You can put multiple elif in the middle, like you can have if, elif, 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 and at the end an else can be there. Else is optional. It can work without else also. If I remove it, it will still work. But if I enter a 0 in this case, now it won't print anything because nothing happens for, there's no else over there. All right. So all these options are available with this thing. Cool. I by mistake turned it to markdown. All right. And so I'll put both examples over here. So yeah. Cool. Clear to both of you, Dhruv and Manasvi. Okay, so this is these constructs are available in all programming languages. Now name might be different. For example, in certain programming languages you see else if, not elif. Like C, C++, Java kind of languages, they have else if, not elif. In Python it's called as elif. Okay, so that's different constructs of if, else, if, elif, etc. And there are two logical operators, so which we were talking about and all. So if I want to write the same program, which is about the three numbers and finding the largest one, if I want to rewrite it using this if elif, I can write it like this. If n1 is greater than n2 and n1 is greater than n3, if both conditions are satisfied, it means n1 is the largest element. Elif n1 n2 is greater than n1 and n2 is greater than n3, then you can say n2 is largest, you print this, and otherwise you just say print of n3. If neither n1 is largest nor n2 is largest, it means which one is largest, n3. So this is a way you can write out these kinds of code. All right, you got the idea now. So same thing I have expressed in multiple ways. One is this way, one is this way, and one is this way. So depending on situation, you prefer to write or use one kind of construct over the other. All right. I'll just finish this. So next thing after this is, do you know what are vowels? I think everyone knows. So vowels are A, E, I, and O and U. Okay. If I want to write a program which says like write a program to input a character and check whether the character is a vowel or not. Okay. So how would I write it? I can write something like C equals to input, let's say enter a character. All right. And then I say if C is equal to A, then you say print a vowel. All right. But now if C is equal to A or E or I or U, if any one of them, it matches any one of them, I should print a vowel. So what I can do is I can use the OR operator. Okay. In multiple programming languages, it's OR is expressed as double this pipe operator. Okay. But in Python, you have to explicitly write OR and AND. There's no operator like a symbolic operator for that. So I can write A, E, or I, or U. All right. A, E, I, O. Okay, I missed one. And otherwise, if it is not a vowel, I can say print not a vowel. So now if I enter A, what happens is this first condition becomes true. So now it means it doesn't need to go and check the remaining conditions. If any condition becomes true, your answer is true, and hence it prints a vowel and skips the else part. All right. But if you enter this thing, let's say I, now what happens is it goes, checks the first condition. First is false, it needs to go check the second. Second is false, it checks the third. Third is true, now it stops because at least one of them is true. It prints a vowel. If you enter S, it checks first false, 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 false. Everything is false, so skip it. Go to else and print not a vowel. That's how this OR operator and combination of if else can work. Or this is this is OR operator and operator and how they're used with in conditions. Conditions can be part of your if else and loops also. So the both places you can use them. But so and or operator are used at a lot of places in many different ways. I'll show you some more examples. But this is the basic use case of and or. Cool. Any questions? Okay.
What if we enter the character as capital A?
Yeah, that was. Would it work or not? What do you think? It
I
won't.
don't know if it is case sensitive or not.
It is case sensitive. There are two things. Python as a programming language is case sensitive, but just consider this thing: is capital A and small a the same data value? No, the data is different. So in any programming language, the data, if you have capital and small a, they are different. All right, but Python language itself is case sensitive. Means if you are using a keyword like if it is in small, you write it in capital, it won't work. So this is meant by the case sensitivity of a programming language. Like it doesn't know what capital IF is. Okay, that's Python's case sensitivity. Cool. But that's a good question. So if we want to make it work with both capital and small letters, what we can do is there are two options. One is like you can say or C is equal to capital A and all that. Another option is what if you just say C equals to C dot lower. Okay, so C, the data type of C is what? String. Cool. So when you say C dot lower, it gets converted to what? Lowercase or small. And now whether you enter capital A or small a, it will always get converted to small a, and then when you check this thing, it's going to work out. Got this thing clear? Fine now.
Yes, yes.
So keeping this vowel thing in mind, will you reuse this code with loops also? Okay, I'll ask you guys to write a program, but remember this usage of and or. Another interesting thing I'll show you, which Python allows you to do, is like with and or is something like this: print one and or let me write like this: is one true or false? Just think, one is treated as true or false in Python.
True.
True. 0,
0 as false.
false. And
No,
a string with some data, something like
it's also called
this.
as true. Like
True.
false is also true, I think. False is also 1, I think.
No, I'm asking like if you have a string which contains something, is it true or false?
True.
True. The string, that's false.
False.
All right. Now with this in mind, if I write something like 1 and 2, what do you think you'll get? Quick. If you
Like
don't know,
1 and
that's
2
fine.
is not defined.
1 and 2 is 1 and 2. It won't give you an error. It will give you an answer. What do you think would be the answer?
I think 3, I think.
It's and, it's not plus.
Okay.
When you do, okay, you are thinking in terms of binary, is it?
Yeah.
No. The binary operator is this. So Python has a separate binary operator, or and and, single or and single and. This is logical and, so it's not going to do any bitwise operation. So what do you think would come out? So Python, what it does is, this is called as short circuit operator. I think I'm calling it correct. Short circuit means it's going to give you the last true value if everything is true, or the first false value if something is false. Why? Because how AND works is, if something is false, will the result be true or false? For AND, if anything becomes false, result would be what? False, because it's AND operator. It wants everything to be true. All right. So as soon as it finds something false, it just stops there. Stops there means it will give you the first false value or the last true value that it encounters. All right, if everything is true. So when I say 1 and 2, 1 is true and 2 is also true. So the result is what? True. But instead of returning a true, it returns the last truthy value. Truthy value means 2 is treated as true, so it returns 2. 2, sorry, not true. It returns 2. Let me show you with a chaining use case. Let's say 1 and 2, sorry, 2 and 3. Okay, sometimes people exploit this kind of thing in code. Not always, this is confusing code, but sometimes they do exploit this. I also do that. So if I write 1 and 2 and 3, what do you expect to see now? For line number 5.
Line number 5, it should be true, I think.
What would it give you? True or 1, 2, 3?
3, I think.
It's going to give you the last true value, which is 3. For line number 6, what is it going to give you?
I think 3, but its second one is false, so I think it should be.
So what would it give you? The first false value? Because see, it takes one which is true, then it goes and checks what is the value of other one. Is it true? No. So if this is false, can it go further? No. So it will give you the last false value, which is 0. So it's going to give you 0. In this case, when you have this 0.0 and 0 and 3, what happens? It finds a false value. This is the first false value. Will it go further?
No.
No. So it stops there and gives you what? 0.0. So this is how AND operator is sometimes used to execute operations. Okay, if some people, like, if you are aware of shell scripts, people often use this kind of behavior in shell scripts. Many people use, like, they write a sequence of AND. In shell scripts, AND is written with a double ampersand operator. But what you typically write is, if the first command succeeds, then run the second command. If the second also succeeds, then run the third command. If any one of them fails in the middle, the remaining commands won't execute. So it's a way of saying, like, if the first step passes, run the second step. If second passes, run the third step. Like that, it can keep on chaining things. All right. So this is how things work out over there. But if I write something like 1 or 2 or 3, what do you think would happen in the case of OR?
I think it should print all, I think.
No, see, these operators always give you only one value. Okay, they don't give you multiple values. So when you say 1 or 2 or 3, is 1 true or false? It's true. Fine. In case of OR, does it need to go and check the remaining ones?
No, not
So what
necessarily.
does it give you?
1.
1. In this case, in the second one, line number 10,
It will give you 1.
1. In this case,
It should give you 3.
3 or the false value. It will give you 3. That's correct. Now,
Yeah.
correct. Now I think you have the idea of how things are working. Cool. So this gives you 3 and this gives you A. So it either gives you the first true value or the last false value. Okay. In the case of AND, it's opposite. It gives you the first false value or the last true value if everything is true. That's how these things work out. Cool. And I can also write it like this. In this case, it would give you 0.0 because everything is false. Understood?
Yeah, got it.
So this thing sticks in mind with practice. It doesn't come immediately, but as you will explore more of Python, you will start getting to know this thing. All right. So let's see next thing then. So let's talk a bit about loops then. Now let's do loops. So typically each programming language has multiple kinds of loops available. All right. Python also has different kinds of loops available. There's for loop, there's while loop. All right. There's often languages also have a do while loop, but there's no do while loop in Python. Okay. There is just for and while loop. So we'll do one thing. We'll start with the while loop. Then I'll explain a bit about sequences, and then we'll see the for loop, because for loop is not very useful without understanding what sequences are. Okay, and let's see while loops first. So the syntax of a loop in Python is simple. You write a while, okay, then you write a condition, and then you write some code. All right, this code can be multiple lines. It's up to you how much code you want to write. And I can write while true, I'll print my name. So what does this code do? What it would do is, whenever you run a loop means loops are a way of repeating something. Okay, till now what you are seeing is these are conditional statements, okay, or jump statements. What they do is, if the condition is true or false, they will either execute the code once or they'll skip it, either 0 or 1. Execute code 0 times or 1 times. Whereas in the case of loop says you can execute code 0 to n number of times. Okay, in this case, when I write while true, this condition is always true. So will this loop ever stop? So when a loop executes, it runs this code, comes back up, checks the condition. If the condition is true, runs again, runs again, runs again. In this case, condition is true. So it will never stop. It will keep on printing my name again and again and again. And if you notice, there's a star over here. What happens now is, be very careful when you're running loops or any kind of code, mostly. If I write now or write some code now, print, let's say ABCD. If I run this code, it's not going to execute. It's going to be in a queue. It's waiting for the previous code to finish. Only the previous one finishes, then this will execute. So now you will see a star in both the places. What do? I hit on interrupt. Okay. Once I do interrupt, now the star is gone. This code has stopped. Now I can go and happily run this thing. But if I run this thing again, it will again go into what we call as an infinite loop. Okay. It never stops. It just keeps on executing. All right, because the condition is always true. A way of writing this code is something like this. I can say I want to print my name 10 times. So for 10 times, normally how do you do these kind of repetitive tasks? You keep a count inside your head. Like if you have to repeat something 10 times, you keep a count. You do it 1, then 2, then 3. Like that, you keep increasing it. Same way, I'm going to keep a variable c equal to 1. And I'm going to say while c is less than or equal to 10, and I'll print my name, and then I'll say c plus equals to 1. I can write it like this also, c equal to c plus 1, but I'm using the shorthand notation. I'm writing plus equal to means add 1 to c and store it back inside c. All right. So now how this code runs is, I'll just put line numbers. First it comes to line number 1, creates a variable c with a value 1. Then it checks, is 1 less than 10? Yeah. come in, print my name, then update the value of C. C becomes what, 2. Then go back up. Since this is a loop, it's going to, I'll add one more statement over here. Print outside loop. Okay, so this code which is indented, this is part of loop, and this will keep on running till the loop's condition is true. So it goes back up, checks the condition. Is 2 less than 10? Yes. Come again, print. Then what happens? It becomes 3, 3, true, print, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Once it is 10, it comes here, prints it. Then it becomes 11. Once it's 11, it checks 11 less than 10, false. Now whatever code was present inside the loop, that gets skipped, your loop stops, and whatever is present outside the loop starts executing. So then it will print this outside loop. So if I run this code, it prints my name 10 times and then prints outside loop. Did you get the idea? Is that clear? Fine.
Yes.
Okay. So now, what do we do? Can you think of writing a program to print numbers from 1 to 10? Simple. Instead of printing my name or your name, you just print from 1 to 10. Simple. Write a program to print numbers from 1 to 10. All right. Can you try it quick? Okay. Are you using Jupyter Notebook or not?
Yeah, we are using.
Okay. So because if you write things in like this, like in capital if else, sorry, elif in capital, it's not gonna work. All right. It would give you syntax error saying like elif undefined or name error elif. Okay. So anyways,
Like if we use command prompt, does it work?
no, Python is case sensitive.
Yeah,
It means whether you write Python code in Jupyter Notebook or anywhere, it's going to be case sensitive. If it is in small, it has to be small. You cannot write it in capital. It won't work. Okay.
I got it.
By the way, why do you guys want to learn Python or study Python?
That's all we
Mm-hmm.
wanted to learn data science. Like I wanted to take up the course of
Mm-hmm.
from the Google thing of data science thing. So there they teach using R language. So I wanted to learn Python also along with that.
Okay, R is R. I don't know how popular it is with data science right now. Back when I was thinking of data science, R was, I think, more popular than. Right now, I'm not sure how popular it is. Now I see Python like going much farther than R. Maybe companies are still using R. I'm not sure who all, at least in my place, they don't use R at all. But still, companies are using R, so it's there. But there are different domains. There is data science and there is other side of machine learning, which is not data science. So there R is not being used. But for data science, R and Python both are being used. So there's an option. Like NLP, image processing, mostly people are using Python over there. Maybe C++ for image processing also. But for other applications of machine learning, mostly it's Python. Yeah.
Yeah, but the Google courses only with R. So I wanted to learn Python along with that. So I can cover both of it.
Okay. Great. Yeah, Python is actually a general purpose language. General purpose means you can learn it and build maybe backends with it, maybe tools and scripts with it, maybe use it for data science or use it for other kind of machine learning stuff. It's up to you. It's not like it's meant specifically for data science. So you can build the entire application into Python except for front end, if you understand what front end back end segregation is. But yeah. What about you, Rasvi?
Yes, I want to change my domain actually.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, I'm in mainframes, so from there I want to switch to Python.
Python, like Python for backend or for machine learning, data science? What exactly?
Data science basically. I don't have much clarity, but
Mm-hmm.
currently I'm in mainframes, and
Mm-hmm.
we are seeing a lot of development in Python plus mainframe area. So I'm looking to learn Python for that.
Okay, for that. So how much experience do you have with into your site, into your domain?
2 years.
Okay, 2 years. That's not too much. So if you want to even switch the domain, maybe use Python with mainframe, maybe learn Python for backend like Django, something like that. Maybe Python for data science. You can make a jump. 2 years is not too much. Cool, nice. All right, so this thing works. Yeah, so you just print out C and okay. This thing, this tab, okay, this tab is different from I have, yeah, but the code works. So that's good. If you want to print it in reverse from 10 to 1, so you just make a small change into this code and it would work. So you just say C equal to 10, you start from 10 and you say C greater than equal to 1, and then you say print C, and instead of plus equal to, you say minus equal to, and starts printing in reverse order. All right. Now, just like nested if else, all right, and all that stuff, you can also have nested loops. All right, we'll see that with for loops, not with this loop. But before that, we need to know about something, sequence types. All right. So yesterday I had said something about strings, that strings are sequences, and sequence means you can use the individual elements of a string by their index. All right, and that's possible with sequences. Sequence means a collection of something. So this is one sequence type. Python has multiple sequence types. One of them, which we'll talk about, is called as a list. All right. uh, List means list is the equivalent of an array in other programming languages. The difference is list is heterogeneous. Heterogeneous means in a typical programming language, if you create a list of integers, everything has to be an integer. All right. And in Python, a list is denoted by these square brackets. If you just use square brackets, put something inside the thing with a comma, or maybe an empty one also, it becomes a list. All right. And when I say heterogeneous, you can pretty much put what integers, comma, what strings, comma, boolean, and float, anything else that you can think of. None is a special type in Python, and even a list inside it. Uh, and it just works. So lists are heterogeneous array types in Python. So this is different from the normal arrays in other programming languages where all the types have to be same. In Python's list, you can just put whatever you want. All right, and it just works that way. And they are denoted by this thing. Also, I can say print type of a, so it will say list, class list, because it belongs to list class. Another way of creating a list is you can just call the list constructor. I'll say equal to list and print a. It gives you a list, an empty list. Another way of creating empty list is just like this: a equals to an empty list, print a. Sorry, my bad spelling mistake. Print a, and it just creates an empty list over there. All right. So list is another sequence type. Sequence type means if I create a list of these three elements over here, it means I can index it and slice it. So if I say print a bracket 1, so it's going to print the element at index 1. So index 1 means this is at index 0, this is at index 1, and this is at index 2. So it's going to print me 2. All right. And similarly, I can go and say print a of -1. So since we can use negative indexing, and negative indexes start from the end, -1 means it's going to print me 3. All right. And all these things work with the list in Python. All right. Did you get the idea? What's happening?
Yeah, got it.
Fine. Now let's come out of list and do something. Let's say write a program to input string. All right, and count the number of vowels in the string. Can you think how you would implement it? So what I'm saying is, so earlier we had written this thing. This thing said like input a character, a single symbol, and check whether it's a vowel or not. All right. Whereas in this case, I'm saying input a string, not a character, like multiple characters, and check how many of them are vowels. All right. So what we need to do over here is we need to use this thing, a loop. So and we'll use a while loop over here. All right. So I'll say, so when you're working with loops, it's up to you how you use the loop or how you make it do the job that you intend to do. So for this thing, I want to iterate or run over each and every character inside the string and check if it is a vowel or not. All right. If I want to write a simple program that just prints each and every character separately, I can write it like this: s equals to input. All right. And I create I equal to 0. Typically, people write a variable which is going to be used as an index as I. I'll show you what I mean to do. I less than len of s. All right, and print s of I, and I plus equals to 1. So if I run this code with an input of A, B, C, D, the index of A is 0, B is 1, then 2, then 3. And if I run this code, so first I becomes what? 0. All right. Then you come and check, is 0 less than length of s? Length of s would be 4. So you print s of 0. So s of 0 would print A. All right. Then you say I plus equal to 1 means I becomes what? 1. Then you go up and check again. Is 1 less than 4? Yeah. You come in and print what? You print B. Then similarly, you print C, then you print D. After printing D, you make I as 4. And since 4 is not less than 4, so you stop it. And if I enter A, B, C, D, it prints each and every character separately. All right. So this is the logic to iterate over each and every character separately. So if I take this logic and inside this logic, I just take this thing which I had written previously and I write something like this. So I don't have a character C over here. Instead of that, I'll just say C equals to S of I. I don't want to go and replace S of I everywhere over here. So I'll create it in a variable C. And I'll keep another counter over here. Let's say vowels equals to 0. And over here, I'll say if it is a vowel like this, then I'll say vowels plus equals to 1. And at the end, I say print count of vowels is vowels. All right, if I run it ABC space AA or something, so it gives me the correct count. Fine, except that if I run it with the capital alphabets also, AB, sorry, type over here, ABCD, it won't work. Why? Because I have not written it for capital one. So I can say dot lower, and now it would work for both capital and small. All right. So this is a way that you can use loops along with your other logic. So I'm using an if inside a while loop. You can probably use while loop inside if, while loop inside a while loop, if else, and all that stuff, whatever you have done within a while loop also. All right, all those combinations are possible, but the indentation should be correct. So if you notice, this I plus equal to 1 is inside the loop, but it is not inside the if. The reason is whether the current character is vowel or not, I still need to increase the counter. All right, if I don't increase the counter, it will get stuck over there and it will become an infinite loop. All right, so this increment has to happen. The I, which is acting as an index into the string, has to get incremented each and every time. But this thing, the vowel count, has to get incremented only if the thing is a vowel. So which thing goes inside if and which thing goes inside both if and the loop is different versus what stays only inside the loop. Okay. Got the idea how you can club things together?
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, there is one problem over here. All right. if I by mistake forget to write this line of code, what happens now? What would happen if I run this code now?
It should be in a loop, like it should start.
It will never stop. It just shows a star. Why? Because what is the value of I initially? 0.
0.
Is 0 less than 4? Yes. It will say A is a vowel increase, vowel count +1. Then there is no I increment. It will go up and I is still 0. It will always stay 0. It will never stop. I'll have to terminate it or interrupt it manually. Okay. So that's the problem with this thing. So with while loop, there is often a problem that you can forget to write statements like this. Okay. So what Python does is Python, I don't know if you guys have read some books on Python or not. I read a lot of books. So when I used to read books, and if you read online, so it's often said like Python's language or the syntax is more intuitive or more like English. Okay. So what it allows you to do is it allows you to say something like this for C in S, and you don't need all this, and that's it. Okay. I forgot one thing. Okay. So it gives me the correct count. Now what happens when you use this loop? So this is the second kind of loop in Python, which is for loop. So with while loop, you have to write a condition. With for loop, you can use for loops only with a sequence. Okay, that's a restriction with for loops. All right. So for loops can only work with sequences. Since S is a sequence and the syntax of for loop is like this: for some variable in some sequence, what it is going to do is it is automatically going to take the first element in the sequence, put it inside C, then run the code, whatever you have written. After this code is done, it will go back up. It will take the next element, put it inside C, and do the stuff for you, so that you don't have to do this manual indexing and index upgrade by yourself. All right. So now, is there a possibility of writing an infinite loop with a for loop? It's not possible. Just think, is there any counter over here? No. Do I have to maintain anything like a counter? No, it's not needed. So in those kind of cases, your for loops are pretty useful when you have to iterate over a sequence and get the job done. Cool. So which one is better, for loop or while loop? What do you think? Syntactically, I think for loop.
For.
Okay. Yeah, but for loop is better. But there are certain places where you cannot use a for loop, or for loop becomes tough to read, or you cannot even use a for loop at certain places. Okay. Uh, since I said for loop can only work with sequences, how do I express code like this? This one which you had written earlier, which is like, say, print numbers from 1 to 10. Okay, since this 10 is not a sequence, all right, how do I get for loop to do it? Because it cannot work with numbers. It can work only with sequences. So what Python does is, there is an option. You can probably create a list like this. You can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. And the problem is this: write a program to print numbers from 1 to 10 using for loop. Okay, and one way is to do something like this. I can say for C in A and print C. Because list is also a sequence, I can use it just like how I was using a string. Okay, instead of putting a string, I can say for C in A. So A is a sequence. It will pick each and every element and print it out. Cool. But there is a problem. What if I want to use 100,000 or million numbers? It doesn't work. It doesn't scale that way. All right. So what Python does is it gives a special type called as a range. It's a special data type or a special sequence type. It also falls under the category of sequence types. So it's a sequence type. What range allows you to do is you can create a range object. You can say range of 10. All right. And then if you say print R, it says range 0, 10. It doesn't print the data. All right. But if I go and put something like this, print, let's say list of R, you see that it gets converted to a set of numbers starting from 0 till 9. So it never takes the last value. If you would remember slicing that we discussed yesterday, it doesn't reach the end. So if the end is 10, it won't give you till 10. It will give start from 0 and reach only till 9. All right. And range has multiple options. Okay. Another thing that I didn't explain before is the list. When you call it like this, it creates an empty list. Okay. But if you go and write something like this, if you put a sequence inside the brackets of a list, it's going to convert that thing into a list with each and every element separated over there. So if I say list of string ABCD, it's going to create a list which contains each and every character of this ABCD. Okay. Same way, if I pass a range over here, so range generates a sequence which is not a list. Okay. But if we want to see what all it is generating, we can convert it to a list. And I can use it like this with one value. Sorry. I can use it like this with 2 values, and I can use it like this with 3 values also. Notice what's happening. Hold on. Yeah, just notice this, observe it once. Do you get what's happening? In this line number 3, in line number 3, it is giving you a list from 0 to 9. It means range 10 starts from 0 and goes till 9. When you give it 2 values, it starts from the first value, so that is included, but the last value is again not included, so it only goes to 19. When you specify 3, it starts from the beginning value, but this third thing is treated as step size. Step size means it will jump this much. So instead of +1 +1, it's going to go +2 +2. So it's going to give you 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. But since it cannot reach 20, so it doesn't give you 20. All right, so this is how your range works. Now, if I want to write that same program that we had written with the while loop, so I can write it like this. We'll come over here and say, since I want to print from 1 to 10, I have to write range of 1, 11, and then I say print C, and it prints this thing. Do you get it? What's happening? Got
Yes.
the idea? So this is how your for loop is used a lot. But now again, notice you are again doing the similar thing, like you're generating numbers from 1 to 10, but there's no counter over here like we were using over here. If I by mistake forget to put this thing in a while loop, it's going to do what? It will go into an infinite loop. There's a possibility of error or a bug. Whereas if you use a for loop with range, it's not going to give you, there's no possibility of such kind of bug to come in your code. Okay. And infinite loops are often a big problem in code. Sometimes they happen by mistake. So this completely avoids that problem. And that's why for loop is better. But still, there are certain cases where you cannot use a for loop. There are still cases, but for loop is always preferred in Python. Just remember that. Okay. Next thing is, can you guys think how you would write a program to print from 10 to 1 instead of 1 to 10? Quick. Can you write that? How would you utilize the range thing to get from 10 to 1 instead of 1 to 10? It's just a modification of the range thing.
Reverse.
Yeah. You're saying like using reverse function or
No, I'm telling that reverse the values like
yeah, so
range 11 to 1.
yeah, 11, but see, if you mean to say if I write this thing,
Like-
is it?
Yeah.
See, whenever you write range,
Uh,
the default step size is always +1.
Okay.
-1 we will give at the end.
Yeah, correct. And the starting should be what? 10. See, the syntax of
10.
this thing,
Yeah.
range is start, comma, end, comma, step. All right, I'll show you one thing quick. I can show that to you on this thing also, but I'll show you on terminal. If you look at this thing, ignore whatever is written below. It's not for you. So just look at this thing. Say start, comma, stop, comma, step. All right. And they also give you an example of how this thing works. And it says like it gives you a range object. So this is a special kind of data type in Python, which is called as range. And that's why it's called as a range object. So it says produces a sequence of integers from start inclusive to stop exclusive. So they are already saying like stop is never included by step. So range I comma j produces I +1 till j -1. And if you give a step size, it's going to add a step part to it. All right. So this is the syntax. And these last two things are optional. Okay. If you only give so what happens is if you only give one value, it's going to be treated as the stop part, and the default starting would be 0. But if you give it two values, then the first one is going to be treated as start, second is going to be treated as stop, and if you give three values, then first is start, second is stop, and third one would be taken as step. So to go in the negative way, all right, so the default step is what? Always +1. So if you want to tell like go from 10 to 1, you have to give it a step size of -1. All right, and
Okay.
now it goes like this. So to make it reach till 1, you have to write what? 0. So that it reaches till 1, because 0 is excluded. So it won't go till 0. It will stop one step before 0. And this is how you get the thing done. Cool?
Okay. Got it.
All right. So this is one piece of code. All right. And see, range is again a function kind of thing. It's not actually a function, it's a type, but for now, just consider it as a function. So this is how this thing works. And there can be many kind of programs that you can practice with loops. So I would suggest you guys, if you guys want to practice, I'll just show you. Because see, learning theory and like understanding thing is one thing. To practice or write code is one thing, and then build a project is the third thing. So building project is important, but before that, you need to know how to use the language. So you can start practicing over here. Okay, I'll paste this link. I don't think I need to paste. Anyways, I'll paste it. Fine. So what you can just go to this and maybe practice one or two things. Really. So there are different sections over here. So in my case, the introduction is checked by default. So if I remove it, it will show a huge number of questions. So gradually you can practice based on what you want to do, basic, advanced, or what. All right. But practice writing code somewhere. Fine. And typically the idea is like you learn how to use, or you learn best when you build a project. Okay, so these websites are not going to give you a project, but after you're done with these kind of things, probably pick up a project. If you are already working, then maybe start using Python in your work. That's the best way to learn anything. Start using it at your work. Otherwise, just pick up some personal project and start building it. What you want to pick, it's up to you. All right. So go by a project-based approach. So that's one thing. So this is a pretty interesting website. Many more are out there. So I like the interface and everything of this website. So I used to use it earlier, not now. But I recommend this to everyone. HackerRank. You can go to Python and check out the questions. All right. Coming back over here. Now, can you guys quickly tell me? Look carefully. Print. If I write this thing, print 1 comma 2 comma 3 comma sep equal to what is it going to print? Do you know what this sep does?
No.
No. So by default, when you call print function, and if you put multiple values inside the print, then it's going to print all of them separated by a space. All right. But if you want to change the default separator from space to something else, You have to specify it by specifying sep equal to something. All right, and it does the job. Got the idea now?
Got it. Good.
All right, if you put a comma, it will put a comma. By default, the separator is what space, so it's equivalent to writing this. All right, but you can change it. You can customize it if you want, but the default value is what? A space. All right. Also, one more thing, if you notice, is whenever you call print, the cursor goes to the next line automatically. If you want to change that behavior, you can do that. There is another option you can use, which is called as end. End means what is printed at the end of printing everything. So if you put a space over there, instead of going to the next line, it's going to keep the cursor in the same line. Did you notice this? The last two lines come in the same one. Why? Because after printing this 1, 2, 3, I said print a space instead of going to the next line. All right. And the default end is what? /n. /n means hold on. /n means a new line. So the default separator end is /n, but you can change it. If you go and again do this thing, help of print, all it's going to tell you values dot means you can put any number of values. Then sep is by default space, end is by default /n. These two options are there, but it's not useful for you right now. All right, it's mainly for file handling. If you are working with files and you want print to print data to a file, you can specify a file object over here, and instead of printing to the console or screen, it will dump data directly to the file, actual file on your drive. All right. So flush is for something else. Flush is for buffering. You can control like flush the buffers now. It's not for that, but yeah, that's the idea. So you can use these two options. All right. Now based on this, let's. Did you understand this? Yes or no?
I got it.
Got it. Now just look at my screen and tell me what is this going to print. For I in range, let's say 5. Print what? Star. And what is it going to print?
Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 star in between.
Hold on. Look at it carefully. What am I printing? I'm printing a star. So would it print number or a star?
It is printing star.
It will print a star.
Stars.
So 5 stars, separate lines. All right. Cool. Am I using this variable I anywhere?
No.
I can also use underscore. So sometimes what people do is when they use a variable, a loop, all right, you will sometimes see this in code. They'll put the variable name as underscore. So underscore is just saying like, I'm not going to use this variable. So this is just for the reader. It doesn't do anything. Even if I write I, it works the same way. But sometimes people do write an underscore over there. All right. So that's something that comes gradually. But if I put end equal to blank, now what happens? Quick.
I think it's in the same line it printed.
It will print in same line. If I write like this, now what happens? Now this is a nested loop. Means for each run of the outer loop, this loop is going to run how many times? 5 times.
Right.
Okay. So how many stars are you going to see, and in what format?
25 stars in the matrix format.
Sure, matrix.
I think yes.
Am I ever telling print to go to the next line?
No, but end means it is to the next.
So end is blank. Blank means print stars in the same line. Print star, same line, print star, same line. There's no way you're telling it to go to the next line. If I write like this, now it prints in the form of a matrix. Why? Because after printing 5 stars, I'm telling now go to the next line. All right. So these are your typical pattern-based kind of programs. If I go and write this program, I just put it this way. I for j in range I plus 1. Now things change. Now what happens? What is the value of I for the first time?
I is fine.
When you say range of 5, what would be the first value it would generate?
0,
0.
1.
For 0, how many times will the inner loop run? This loop. When I is 0.
1 time.
one time, so it will print a star. All right, after printing star, this loop finishes. It moves your cursor to next line. Then it goes back up. I becomes what? 1. For I1, how many times does this loop run? 2.
Yeah.
So how many stars? 2. Then again go to the next line. So it's gonna print a triangle like this. Got this idea?
Oh, got it.
So same way you can manipulate all of this stuff. So I can also write something like this for j in range bracket 5 minus I minus 1 colon print a space comma end equal to blank. So what I'm saying is before printing stars, print a space, but the number of space is decreasing and the number of symbols is increasing as I increases, because when the value of I is 0, the value of this thing would be what? 4, and the value of I would be, this thing would be what? 1. When I becomes 2, this becomes 3, this becomes 2. When I is 3, this becomes 2, this becomes 3. So this loop will keep decreasing the count as I increases, and this loop will keep increasing the count as I increases, and this gives you this pattern, a shifted star pattern, because I'm printing spaces before printing a star. So you can do magic with loops. All right, not magic, like you can do anything with loops. It's just a manipulation of the counters. All right, and you can do a lot of patterns with loops, with for loops or any kind of loop. You can write the same programs with a while loop also. It's possible, but they'll become more wordy. Like you'll have to write more code over there. But this is the idea. All right. Any questions about this right now? Anything? Yes, no, something? No? Okay.
Like
Do you guys?
for the range thing is the for necessary. Like for we can use the range, right?
We can use range. See, range is just a function. All right. You can say range anywhere. Range of 1. How many values is it going to generate? 1 value. Okay. But you can use it with a loop. Maybe you want to generate a list of numbers or an array of numbers from 0 to 100. So what you can say, print list of, or not print directly, you can just say a equal to list of range of 101. Let's say 1 comma 101. You want to start from 1, and it generates a list of numbers from this to this. Got the idea?
Yeah, got it.
All right. So this is, you can use range at many places. There are many other functions through which you can pass range. There are many use cases for range. All right. This is just a very basic level of use case of range. There's higher order functions. There's a lot in Python to learn. Okay, decorators, this that. So this is your range. What after range? Okay, let's say I have. Let's talk a bit about strings and list. Okay, if I go and say print dir of a string class, you'll find there is a function called as join and there is a function called as split. I'll show you what they do. Okay, s equal to input I'll keep it copied, and okay, my bad. Do you understand what's happening? What is split doing?
How
What?
did it understood it has to split by spaces?
That's the default option, that it splits by space. I'll show you. Help of a string dot split. If you read the documentation, it says sep equal to none, max split equal to -1. So there are certain default settings. Sep the delimiter according to split, which the split the string, none the default value, means split according to any white space. So white space means any kind of white space. So what are white space characters? Let me show you. Let's say s equal to ab/n cd/t pq space rs. All right, let's say print s. So all these characters /n/t and space are called as white space characters. All right, what /n does, move to next line, /t, put a tab, space is space. All right, and if you say print s dot split, it will split wherever it finds a white space character. So white space means anything which, white space is a category of characters. There are multiple in it. There's another called a /r. All right, /r means enter. Fine, but these are different white space characters. So the default implementation of SEP is if you don't tell it what to separate it by, all right, it's going to split it by any white space character. But you can customize its behavior. You can go and tell it like, hey, let me edit it and split by a comma. All right, and if I enter 1, 2, 3, 4, it's going to split by a comma. Got the idea? And it can be something bigger also. Instead of just comma, you can put like what? You can put something else also. You can put my name or maybe more than one character also. All that is possible. Fine. Also, there was an option of max split. Max split means if I put comma, let's say 2, it's going to split maximum 2 times. So after 2 splits, you get this much. It won't split after 2. All right. But yeah, that's an option you can use. But did you get the idea what split does? And what is the result of split? What is the type of result of split? What is the type of this thing?
List.
List, correct. So when you call split on a string, it gives you a result which contains a list of what? What is the type of the individual elements inside the list? What is the type of this and this and this? It's a string, correct, yeah. So split always gives you a list of strings, okay? And the opposite of split is what? The function called as join. All right, I'll show you how this works. But let's say I want to write a program to do the thing. Input list, input numbers separated by comma and find their sum. So I'm going to write it like this. Let's say s equal to input, enter numbers, oh my god, enter numbers separated by comma. All right, and after that I say nums equals to s dot split. All right, and now if I want to add all the numbers, the problem is they are not numbers. They are right now what? Strings. So I cannot add them. To add them, I need to convert them to a number. So I'll say for n in nums, let's call it nums. So it's often useful to use meaningful variable names. So num in nums, and num equal to int of num. And I'll create a sum variable s equal to 0, and then I'll say s plus equals to num, print s. Sorry, s I was using for the sum. Let's call it ss. I'm not calling it as sum. I'll show you why. What went bad? Invalid little. Okay. The problem is I forgot to put comma as the separator. Now what's wrong? Okay, it should be ss. Now it gives me the sum, which is 30. Looks like it's giving me the correct result. All right. But the thing is, like, when you have to write this kind of code, you have to be careful what kind of input you're taking. For example, this will only work if you type a comma in between. If you start typing a space, it won't work at all. All right. So that has to be taken care of. Another thing is I'm converting all this thing to an integer. Why? Because when I call split, it gives me a list of numbers, but the numbers are as strings, not as integers. So I have to run a loop, convert each and every number in the form of string to an actual integer, and then I add it to a variable which is initially initialized to 0. All right. There is another option which I can do. So if you look at the list type, list has a function called as append. All right. Append is used to add something to the end of list. So when I say a dot append 10, it adds 10 to the end of this list. If I say a dot append bracket, let's say ABCD or something, it's going to add it to the end of the list. So that's also an option. So instead of writing it like this, I can also write it like this. There's an option. I say res equal to an empty list, and I just say res dot append bracket int of num. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a list of numbers, and it's going to be actual integers right now, because when I call split, it converts them to numbers, but the numbers are not numeric, they are strings. But when I write this, it generates a list of numbers in the form of actual integers. So these are integers. Now Python provides a function, a built-in function, which is called as sum. And if you pass any sequence of numbers to sum, it's going to add them. So I created a list of 1, 2, 3, and when I passed this sum, a to this sum, it just added them. You can also say sum of range of, let's say, 10. So it's going to add all the numbers from 1 to 10, and which gives me the sum of 45. So sum takes a sequence type, all right, and that sequence type should be a sequence of numbers. Just see this. A string is also a sequence, but sum only works with numbers. It won't work with a string. So that's why it gives you an error. All right. So now to print the sum, I can also use this option, print sum of res. So there are many ways to solve the same problem. Got the idea how this thing works? This is a bit about loops.
Yes.
All right. Do you guys have any specific questions on loops or something? If you want me to explain, because this is very basic on loops. You can do a lot of many more things with loops.
The append thing, what does it does?
Okay. See, do you remember yesterday I told you that strings are immutable? Immutable means you cannot modify a string, like s equal to ABCD. And when I say s dot upper or lower, let's say upper, it's going to create a new string.
Yeah.
All it, the original one stays as it is, fine. But if you say something like this thing, let's take another example. What do you think? Is it still immutable, or did it get modified?
I think it got modified.
The original one, or did it still create a new one? What do you think?
The original one is modified because we are replacing the value with.
No, that's not correct. So I'll just show you how to validate that. So actually what I'm saying is create a new string with a modified value, and make this s variable refer to that modified value. I'll show you with an example. Not example, like there is a function in Python called as id, which gives you the address of something. All right. If the original one got modified, the address should be the same. All right. But after this, if I print id of s, it would be different. So the original string ABCD, small ABCD, had the ID of what? This thing. All right. Versus after the change, the new one has a different ID. It means it created a new object. It didn't modify the original one. Okay. The only difference is, in this case, I'm saying make s point to the new modified object. All right. Whereas in the previous one, I'm saying create a new one, but make this s and r, which are the two strings, let them be separate. All right, they won't be the same. Let me just show over here. All right, over here also they are different, but I'm not making s point to the new object. I am saying keep s at the same location, but make the new object pointed by r. All right. Whereas in this case, I'm saying update the reference of s to the new object also. Got some idea now? So strings are still immutable. That's what I mean. Okay. So that's immutability. But this data type, your list is mutable. Mutable means you can modify it. I'll just show you. If you say s equal to ABCD, I'm taking the same string, and then you say s bracket 1 equal to, let's say, capital B. You want to change it. It doesn't work out. It says it doesn't support item assignment. But if you say this thing, and then you say a bracket 1 equals to 20, it works out.
Okay.
So is list
I-
mutable?
Yeah. Okay.
Got the idea now?
Yeah, but this should also be having this. Does this have the same ID, or does this
So does this have the same?
ID, or does it change?
Yeah, that's interesting. So if I say print ID of A before and after this thing, let's put it in the same line. It would be same, all right, because you are modifying the original list. So you see that the IDs don't change. Okay,
Okay.
understood. So these are mutable types. List is a mutable type. You can modify it. Same way, when if you want to add something more to a list, can you do it? Yes, and that's what your append does. So when you say a dot append and in the bracket you put some value, it adds it to the same list at the end of the same list. So if I say a dot append bracket, let's say 300 or something, and then I again print it, so it just adds it to the end of it, and you see the address stays the same. Cool. So list supports many functions actually. Print. So these are the functions that are available. Append is there, which we use. Clear means delete all the contents of the list. Copy means create a copy. So what it does is, if I go and say equal to 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I say b equals to a, notice this thing very carefully. And then I say b bracket 1 is equals to 20. And then I say print a. And then I say print b. What do you think would happen? Can you tell me the output?
When you print A, that it will be like 1, 2, 3, 4. When you print B, it will be like 1, 20, 3, 4.
Sure. Let's see. Why does this happen? Now do you understand why is that happening? Because when you say b equal to a, it doesn't create a copy of a. It just says now it's like the same person can have two names. All right, it's something like that. Whether you refer to the person by the first one name or the second name, it's actually the same person. So when you say b equal to a, you are saying there is a list object which is this, which is stored at this address. I'll call it by the name a. When you say b equal to a, you are saying now I'll also call it by the name b. That's it. So the object is same. So when you modify one, the other gets modified. But if you actually want to fix it, you have to write something like this. You have to create a copy. Now do you see the difference? So this thing has to be understood. This is very important in Python. All right. There's another concept I want you guys to read about it, which is called as shallow copy and deep copy. I won't explain it. Okay, that is similar to what I've just shown you, but a extended version of this. Do read it in your free time. Shallow copy versus deep copy. This kind of issue or this thing is there in multiple programming languages. Python also has it, so just you should be aware about it. Just Google Python deep copy versus shallow copy, and you'll get content to read about it. But do read about it. Okay. So this is your list type, and it has a copy function. It has a count. Count means if you want to count the occurrence of something, for example, print a dot count. You want to see how many times one occurs. One occurs only one time, so it gives you one. If I go and add another element to it, let's say two times, it's gonna give you two. And if I add multiple times, it's gonna give you four. All right. And there is extend, there is index, there are many functions. All right, they do different kind of job depending on what the behavior is. For example, remove is for removing something. Pop is also for removing, but the behaviors are somewhat different. There is a reverse also. Reverse means reverse the thing. All right, I'll show you what reverse does. So this reverses the actual list itself. All right. So it doesn't create a copy of the list in reversed order. It actually reverses the original list. So this is also a function. So there are many functions depending on the data type. Different data types have different things, but this is the general idea. You can do things with it. Got this thing?
Yeah.
Any questions, guys? I think that's it for today
Yes.
for us on loops. And guys, there's one more update. So I don't think we'll be having a session tomorrow, all right, because we have only 2 of you over here. That's at least you guys joined. Thanks for that. But we won't be having the oops part tomorrow. For the oops part, probably we'll have a separate 2 to 3 days session only on oops later. So I think that will be updated sometime on the website. Because oops can be taken separately apart from these things. So probably it will be dedicated only on oops. It would expect you to know about functions, all right, but we'll keep a separate session for oops. So there won't be any session for tomorrow, all right. And yeah, I think that's it for today. And if you guys have any kind of questions like job related, interview related, anything, feel free to ask me. All right, I've been working in industry for I think 5.5 years now. Yeah. In IT industry, not in training industry. Training industry is something I do part time. So if you have any questions for me, let me know. Yeah, anything. No.
Like, what are the openings can we find only on Python? Like,
Okay. Sorry, Dhruv, I don't know about your background. I think if you told yesterday, I forgot it.
yeah,
Can you tell me again?
in Bachelor of Science in Electronics, Maths and Computer Science.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is it, are you done or is it your
it's done.
last
It's
year or
done.
something? It's
Yeah,
done. This year you completed?
the last year I completed in 2020.
Okay. All right. And you plan to go into data science, is it?
Yeah, I'm thinking of it.
Okay. How long do you think how much time do you plan to spend time out? How long do
Course
you?
is for about like 140 hours, so I think I should complete it by generally like a month or two.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Uh, okay, I'll be very open about it. See, moving to data science domain as a fresher can be tough. Okay, not just tough, it can be very tough. All right, I have been teaching since couple of years, specifically for data science. Previously, I've taught other languages and other stuff also, but it can be tough. So with respect to Python, my suggestion would be like first get a job. All right,
Okay.
focus on your data science stuff. All right, but get any job in Python, maybe a backend, or maybe something related to data. In data science also there are different pipelines or different phases of data science. There's an initial data acquisition part, there's a data processing part, then there is a model training and analytics part. So there are different parts of it, all right. And you can get into any of these, all right. If you directly get into the analysis of the data part, maybe visualization or maybe even the training the models, etc., that's great. I think that's what you intend to do probably. But if you even if you get into the initial stages of data science or not into data science exactly, maybe you work with Python, but on something else, that's good enough. I would suggest you do that, all right. And it takes a couple of months. When I say couple of months, I would say at least 6 months to get prepared on data science, because data science is huge, literally huge in the sense like there is so much to study. It's very huge, all right. So uh, don't keep very short time limit for yourself. You won't be able to make it in that time. So a realistic timeline I would suggest would be keeping 6 months and going like spending like 3 to 4 hours every day on Python and data science. That's what I would suggest for that perspective. And one thing that people often do mistake, even I have done that in initial stages of my career, is like let's say I want to get into this data science domain or any I want to get a job. All right, what we do is we keep on studying. All right, we don't go and try out whether what we are studying is actually relevant for the market. How do you test whether you are studying or what you're doing is correct or not? You have to test it. And the test is, in this case, is the interview. All right. So often people keep on studying, they keep on preparing for the interview, but they don't give the interview. They think like, I'll prepare this much, then I'll give interview. Then their targets change. They never give an interview. So the first thing is, once you have very basic knowledge of something, make a CV, put it out in the market, and start giving interview. All right. When I say start giving interview, it's not like you'll put out your CV and you'll get a call. All right. So there are multiple stages of interview also. If I look at it, there's first thing is CV or shortlisting. This itself has two phases. One is like the software or the filter passes your CV, and then second thing is the HR accepting your CV. After you have cleared these two stages, next thing is your interview, the actual interview, the technical part. All right. And this is the part. So once you are preparing for something, how do you know what you are preparing is correct or not? Maybe you should study Python, maybe you should not, maybe you should study R. How do you get to know? Market will tell you. So make a CV, put it out in the market, see if you're getting like openings or you're getting any mails for job interviews. All right. If you get them, see what kind of JD they are giving you. From the JD itself, they mention what technologies they need. From the JD, you'll get to know what technologies you need to study. Simple. That's it. This is the approach I think most people should take. And once your CV gets shortlisted by the filter, after that the HR will call you, they will talk about your profile, etc. Now you have to make your CV first for the filter, second for the HR, third for the interviewer. So there are different stages for your CV also. All right, so go that way and give yourself a bigger timeline, 6 months or something, because it's really time consuming learning data science. All right. Does that help? Don't get demotivated,
No.
but I'll be realistic. Uh, it takes time. It takes time. Whatever anyone might say to you, I am telling you the truth. At least 6 months is what you need. At least.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else? Yeah.
Yes, the separate session for OOPS, we will get the email for that, or do we need to check websites or continuously?
I'm not sure. The website, I don't maintain the website. Like, I just had to take this session. All right. So for Oops, probably it will be updated on website. But I don't think it would be very tough to send out a mail also. I'll ask Abhishek to drop a mail. Cool. Whenever that happens. So you guys would have already given the email ID, so they would be happy to send out a mail. So you'll get to know by mail.
Okay.
Yeah.
And being in IT and changing the domain to data science or Python, what will be the ideal projects to do to convince the company that yes, we can manage the new domain easily?
Okay. So hold on. So there are certain things. I have a question. Have you heard of ML?
Yes,
Have you heard of data science?
yes.
It's a question for both of you actually. And have you heard of AI, artificial intelligence?
Yes.
Do you guys know which thing are you looking for out of these three? And what's the difference? Are you looking for this or this or this or something else?
I'm looking for data science.
Okay. And what about you, Dhruv? You also looking for data science? Okay. Fine. So see, data science is different from it. I'll just tell you. AI is the super category. You can say ML is the subcategory, and data science is even the subcategory of ML, machine learning. All right. So now what happens is data science typically means you have you would have heard use cases like there is e-commerce kind of data, and you already have the data and you want to analyze or predict or get some insights from the data. All right, whether the how the who is more likely to buy certain kind of product, those kind of use cases are solved by data science. All right, but there are other use cases also which come as part of ML. So there are different kind of opportunities in the market. Certain are for data science, certain are for ML. As the experience grows, it becomes tough for people to jump domains. But with 2 years of experience that you have, it would be easier for you to jump a domain. All right, and but to jump the domain, there are two kinds of companies you would have. One is startups, one is like mid-tier companies, and one will not mid-tier. I'll say mid-size companies, and one would be like, let's just say startups versus the traditional companies. Okay, now the interview strategy would be different, or the ease with which you'll be able to get into these two kind of companies would be different. All right, for startups, if you gain good knowledge, I mean in terms of projects, they'll be happy to hire you. With traditional companies, you definitely need this. All right, but they would also expect you to have experience. Some companies might be an exception, which traditional or the big companies, which might take you with knowledge, even if you don't have an experience. All right. But most companies would look for both of these, having experience in data science already. But with startups, it's easier to get into them. So if you want to jump, so your interview strategy should be focused on startups, also focus on this thing. But yeah, definitely you need to build projects. How do you build projects? Typically, what people do is they start practicing from here. All right, and now the thing is, when you start practicing, initially you start with smaller data sets. As you learn more, you start practicing with bigger data sets. That's how you do this thing. Another thing is, this gives you a practice on not from an industry level. All right, in industry things are very different. In industry, a lot of different tools would be used. For example, we were using it, or we are using it to, I'm using it to push notebooks. I don't know if you use Git already. This is just a tool that's used in industry. Similarly, people in data science would be using a lot of other tools. For example, people use Jupyter notebooks. People use different libraries, pandas, dask, this, that, depending on what kind of data is there. All right, so you need to learn all that. Some kind of knowledge comes only when you actually work in industry. So there's a kind of loop kind of thing. To get into industry, you need experience, and to have experience, you need to get into industry. So there's a cycle, but often startups would be ready to take you if you have good knowledge and you're willing to learn. All right, so based on this, you have to pick up your strategy. If there is an option to do something related to data science within your company, try to explore that. If I were in your place, what I would do is, I would know that my role is not data science. All right, but see, sometimes you have to write some things in your CV which are partially true, not completely true, but partially true. For example, you can say something like, I work for mainframe, but some part you can try to relate something with data science if possible. And you can say, I use these libraries. Maybe data science folks often use libraries, NumPy, pandas. These are two common ones. There is a visualization library, Seaborn, Matplotlib, etc., etc. You can say like, I also often sometimes generate reports like health stats, something, something, and I use pandas and that library for that. Now you are making your profile more relevant to what the people might be looking for in your CV. You are saying you may be not doing data science, but you're using certain libraries already, and you're interested in jumping into data science, and you also have knowledge because you have practiced. So now you are a more likely or more suitable candidate than someone else. That's how you have to do. It's a hit and trial. You go, give an interview, see what happens. Based on that, update your CV, change your strategy. That's it. Got it?
Yes, that helps. Thank you.
It's a hit and trial, to be true. If you don't already have experience, it's a hit and trial. You can jump. People have jumped.
Mhm.
Like people from like with 5 to 6 years of experience, I've seen them jump. into data science. My seniors, when few years back they jumped into data science, they have done this thing. People with more experience also have done, but with lesser experience, it's easier and faster. So yeah, cool. Anything else?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, guys, then thanks a lot for joining and listening to me patiently. Good luck for your data science journey. All right, and keep working, keep learning, and feel free to get in touch if you need any kind of help anytime later. All right, and I'll push this notebook to this repository, the one which I have written, and yeah, cool. Good day, guys. Take care. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Gaurav.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.